Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, filling in for Steve Malzberg on this hot and humid Friday here in a September afternoon in New York City. 91 degrees here today. We broke 90, I think, maybe 4 times over the summer, and we've already broken it twice since Labor Day. So, a little bit sweaty right now. I hope you don't notice on camera in your HD TVs. Thanks for joining us, everybody. You may know me from Mediaite.com. That's a website that, well, the media covering the media. Also, I'm seen on Fox pretty often, CNN pretty often, America's Most Wanted once in a while. That's another story for another time. But appreciate you joining us here today. Great show lined up for you. Look, we just talked about Labor Day being over. We're now in the stretch run to the midterm elections, about 8 weeks away. Republicans looking to hold the House, most certainly. They get 6 seats in the Senate. They have a majority there, too, and then the whole ball game changes. So we're going to talk plenty about that. The NFL season kicks off this weekend, and of course that means the never-ending, it won't go away, geez, is this annoying Redskins controversy. We'll be talking about that name that will never be changed as long as the owner is alive. That's going to be talked about as well. ISIS obviously still big in the news. Dean Abdallah from the Daily Beast, he has some very poignant thoughts on that, and some great panels lined up as well. So appreciate you being with us today, and let's get on with the show, shall we? So yesterday you may have heard the former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, well, he was found guilty of 11 counts of corruption, while his wife was also found guilty of public corruption for accepting $100,000 worth of gifts and vacations. Although the case against the McDonnells seems airtight, there seems to be a pattern of Republicans being indicted or at least threatened with indictment, especially if there is a chance they may run for, I don't know, president. So, Governor Rick Perry, ring a bell? Yeah, probably. Maybe Christie as well. So why is there such a focus on targeting Republicans for corruption this year? I'm now joined in studio by Republican strategist Noelle Nikpour. Noelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Not a beat of sweat on you. You handle it a little bit better.
I'm a girl.
Oh, well,
we don't sweat.
That is very obvious. So,
thank you.
Hey, this year, you know, it kicked off with Christie and the whole Bridgegate thing. That was MSNBC's lead story in prime time, 27 consecutive nights. I actually had to count and go through the transcripts. This is what I do. Last I checked, I live in New Jersey, and Christie's signs are still on the Welcome to New Jersey sign. So not a lot heard about that. Rick Perry then gets indicted about 2 weeks ago in what even the most liberal of Democrats are saying is this is the most ridiculous indictment we've ever heard. But the pattern is there. If you're running for president, somebody's going to find something on you to just muddy the waters enough to bring down, obviously, a run and your public image in the process.
Christie was the biggest tragedy that I saw because he actually was perceived as the front runner, especially with a group that we have had trouble getting, we meaning the GOP, which is the moderates. Look, you had Mark Zuckerberg throwing a fundraiser for him in California. You had a lot of people that had a Christie kind of a fascination, so to speak, with the way that he governed. So the sad thing of it is this Bridgegate, which he actually didn't do, you know, as of now, didn't do, and they kept it in the just front pages over and over again to where you just looked at Christie and went, ooh, Bridgegate. Second thing was Perry.
Let me stop you before you go to Perry. With Christie, and I'm sorry I called you Nicole.
No.
You're Noelle. I'm from Jersey. Every other girl is named Nicole. Trust me, it's just part of the whole process. Of course you're Noelle.
Snooki.
Snooki. Oh, the Snook, really?
Yeah, I don't know
why. You got about a foot on her. I saw her once.
Go there?
She might be 4'7". You're definitely not 4'7". We could talk about that all day, right? They call me JWoww also, so that's the way that goes.
There.
Anyway, Christie, he actually had a run-in with Snooki once. It seems like that stuck, that stuff with Bridgegate.
Yeah.
That really resonated, and he went from being, now he still tops some polls, but he used to be almost like Hillary Clinton, like it's inevitable he's going to get the nomination. Do you think he runs still, given all the damage that at least the perception of a perfect record was?
You know, that remains to be seen. It's going to be, what's really been funny is, you know, he's been the head of the RGA as well at one time. Bob McDonnell, you know, was the head of the RGA. And I know that Christie has been in many states raising funds for the RGA, done a really great job, but it's not really as publicized as we would have thought it would have been if he would have been one of the clear front runners. More so, we're looking at someone like Rand Paul. Whenever he makes a move, it's kind of being publicized. Chris Christie, if you notice, other than the Bridgegate, really has taken a back seat in the media. They're not really covering him as much, which tells you something. What will be curious to see is how much he raises for his own governor PAC, to see if the governor's PAC raising in the state of New Jersey for Christie goes down. That'll tell you if his popularity nationwide is starting to dwindle, because more and more people want to get on that train and donate to his governor's PAC if they think he's going to be a really big contender for 2016.
See, I think that he had no margin for error. In other words, Tea Party didn't want him, even though he fiscally, I think he acts very Tea Party-esque, right? Yeah. I mean, he balanced budgets, he cuts taxes, he certainly takes on unions. But, you know, from a, I guess, a social perspective, he's seen as too liberal. So they never really were supporting him in the first place. Certainly conservative media wasn't as well. So then where are his allies? And when he got in all this trouble, no one stepped forward to say, what are you doing to this guy? So that's why I think he has a real problem.
They didn't step forward because they didn't know if he was guilty or not, because the style of closing the bridge and being kind of like, oh, we're going to show you, you know, that's kind of like, you know, Christie has been known to be kind of like sort of the badass in politics, where he is like, take no prisoners, you know, hey, sit down, shut up, let me talk, and then you can, you know, kind of that kind of a guy. So when you heard about the scandal, you're like, well, you know, I could see where it might, you know.
Yeah,
so
and
I
it's
think
Jersey,
no one,
by the way.
Yeah. So no one really stepped up because they didn't know, is this going to really come back on him? And it was really sad because, you know, he had a huge press conference on saying, I'm sorry, I fired the people that, you know, that were
took
responsible.
Responsibility.
But it still kept going. And I think it was pretty much, by then, it was a minute issue. I mean, I really think it's not that big.
That's a Democratic
You've got
governor.
Benghazi with people dying, and then you've got this, you know,
the bridge was bigger than Benghazi, that's true.
Silliness.
I talked about margin of error before with Christie. I think it exists also with Rick Perry as well. I think that his 2012 campaign, you generally could call a disaster. It just didn't go well. He came across as Bush 2.0 in terms of intelligence. Now, that may or may not be true, and I'm not saying that the former president had any sort of intelligence in this results. It's all about perception sometimes, right? So the point is with Perry is that even this indictment, which is completely ridiculous, you know, it still seems like he didn't have a lot of places to go anyway. I think he's going to run. I hope he does, just to see the Rachel Maddow glasses, you know, on a daily basis, which certainly makes him look more cerebral. But who do you see right now as, if you were to predict who's going to get the nomination, given what we just said about Perry and Christie, who very easily could have, who do you see coming out of all this?
If you would have asked me before the ISIS terrorist threat got to be full throttle, I would have said Rand Paul. If you're asking me now, that's Rand Paul's weakness. I'm looking at someone like a Jeb Bush. I'm going to tell you something very interesting.
Can you win just with Bush? Just having that name, does that automatically disqualify your chances?
No, because Jeb Bush is seen as kind of more of the person that would bridge the gap between the GOP and the Latino, the Hispanic vote. So he's viewed a little differently than George. And he's actually, when you think of Jeb Bush, you think of a very smart man. So, you know, and you're right, for some reason, George Bush, extremely smart, highly educated. I think it was more how he articulated things. It made him seem like he was, you know, not all that great. But his talents are not, he doesn't have great rhetoric. It's where like Obama is fantastic, but who knows what's behind that.
What do you think of Scott Walker's chances? And now obviously he is a threat because they're going after him in the most ridiculous ways. Debbie Wasserman Schultz said that he's an extremist and says he gives the women the back of his hand, which we know she's deplorable already, but that's a whole bowl of wrong.
I think that's going to go away by the wayside, but I don't look at him compared to someone like a Jeb Bush as a big contender.
Let's play a clip. We'll get that verbatim from the head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Let's hear from her.
Scott Walker has given women the back of his hand. And there is no, I know that is stark, I know that is direct, but that is reality. What Republican Tea Party extremists like Scott Walker are doing is they're grabbing us by the hair and pulling us back.
For somebody who has this awful hair that she does, that's not the analogy that I go with. She's stuck in 88. That's Bananarama right there, isn't it?
That is Bananarama, and they need her back. So the 80s have called, and they need to get her back there. She's missed her call. Yeah, it's a cruel, cruel summer. It's bad that we know this.
I'm going to throw a name at you.
Do it.
Because no one talks
Bring
about
it
this
on.
guy, and I'm going to write about this, as I see him as presidential material.
This is going to be
And
bad.
I see him winning.
It's going to be bad.
No, it's not. It's a governor, okay, of an Iron Belt state, a very
me.
important state.
Hit me.
John Kasich.
Really?
Yes. Approval ratings in the 50s in Ohio, in a key state, a guy who was certainly articulate. He was on Fox News for a while.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about him. I say he runs. I say he wins.
I
Dr.
say
Speechless.
I say he doesn't.
Okay.
I say he doesn't run. I say he doesn't win. Therefore, he does not win. I am looking at actually, that was actually good. Now I'm actually thinking about that. Thanks a lot.
back on track.
That and Bananarama.
Right.
I think that in a time if you have ISIS and you have global terrorism and you have people that are nervous about an attack on the homeland, I think you're going to look for someone that's strong in foreign policy and who's a real friend, an authentic and sincere friend to Israel. That is Mike Huckabee. I am not a far-right
Not seen as
supporter.
too
I
extreme.
can't stand far-right. I like in the middle. I'm a moderate. But let me tell you something. He has a direct relationship with Netanyahu. He has been to Israel countless times, even before all this yada yada. But I've got to tell you, he is the strongest ally with foreign policy, and he may surprise you. He's not my fave, but he is strong on foreign
I
policy.
like the alliteration of this. Huckabee Hillary. That
Huck
could
Hill.
work.
Huck
Wow. Noelle Nikpour Nikpour, the snook herself, in here on a hot Friday, or you're almost Saturday. Hey, look, thanks for joining us. Let's do it again soon.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Yes. The controversy surrounding President Obama. Is there a war on Republicans? We will discuss this issue further with the Malzberg panel. Don't go anywhere. Joe Concha filling in for Steve Malzberg. The Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax.